My father's 70th birthday party was being held at his house. Well, his and Patricia's house, technically. The house he'd moved into 15 years ago when he married her, leaving behind the home where my mother had died and where I'd grown up. I almost didn't come. The invitation had arrived late, forwarded through my aunt after apparently being lost in the mail. But it was Dad's 70th, and despite everything, he was still my father. So I drove the 2 hours from the city, bought a tasteful gift, and prepared myself for an afternoon of being politely excluded from my own family. The house was full of people when I arrived. Patricia's relatives dominated the space. Her 2 adult children, Melissa and Brandon, along with their spouses and children. My father's colleagues from his law practice. Neighbors. Friends. And somewhere in the middle of it all, my father, looking older but still distinguished in his tailored blazer. Sophia. Patricia spotted me immediately. Her smile was bright and entirely fake. You made it. We weren't sure you'd come. It's Dad's birthday, I said simply. Of course. Well, come in. There's food in the dining room, drinks in the kitchen. Make yourself at home. The last part sounded more like a challenge than an invitation. I found Dad in the living room holding court with a group of his lawyer friends. He saw me and his expression flickered, something that might have been guilt or maybe just discomfort. Sophia. You came. Happy birthday, Dad. Thank you. He accepted the gift I handed him with a perfunctory smile. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. An awkward pause. One of his friends cleared his throat. Well, Dad said, I should circulate. Talk to you later. Sure. He moved away, already laughing at something one of his friends said. I stood alone in the living room of a house I'd never lived in, surrounded by people who barely knew I existed. This was always how it went. After Mom died when I was 12, Dad had thrown himself into work. By the time I was 15, he'd met Patricia. By 16, he'd remarried. By 17, I was living with my grandmother because Patricia made it clear there wasn't really room for me in their new blended family. I'd spent the last 15 years on the periphery of my father's life. Invited to major events, acknowledged as his daughter when necessary but never quite included. Never quite family. I found my way to the dining room where an elaborate spread had been laid out. As I was filling a small plate, Melissa appeared beside me. Sophia, right? Dad's daughter from his first marriage. That's right. You're Melissa. I am. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. It's nice that you could come. I know it's a long drive from wherever you live. The city. It's not that far. Still, it means a lot to Dad that you made the effort. She lowered her voice conspiratorially. Between you and me, I think he feels guilty about how things worked out. You know, after your mom died and everything. Does he? Oh, definitely. He talks about it sometimes. How hard it was for you losing your mom so young. How he did his best, but he was dealing with his own grief. She paused. Mom, Patricia, she's been really good for him, you know? Helped him move forward. I'm glad he's happy, I said neutrally. He is. And we're all one big family now. Or trying to be, anyway. She glanced around, then leaned closer. Can I give you some advice? Sister to sister. We weren't sisters, but I nodded anyway. Don't take it personally when Mom gets a little protective of Dad and our family. She just wants to make sure he's surrounded by people who really care about him, you know? People who are actually part of his life, not just showing up for special occasions. The implication was clear. I took a bite of cheese to avoid responding. Anyway, Melissa continued brightly, glad you're here. Help yourself to food. She drifted away, leaving me standing alone by the shrimp cocktail. The afternoon wore on. I made small talk with Dad's colleagues who vaguely remembered me from years ago. I played with Melissa's children who had no idea who I was. I watched my father laugh and joke and celebrate with his family, the family that didn't really include me. Around 3 o'clock, Patricia called everyone to the living room for cake and speeches. I hung back near the doorway trying to be present but not intrusive. Before we cut the cake, Patricia announced, her arm around Dad's waist, I want to say a few words about this amazing man. She launched into a speech about their 15 years together, their blended family, their life. She thanked Melissa and Brandon for being wonderful children. She thanked Dad's friends for their support. She thanked everyone who'd come to celebrate. She didn't mention me. And now, Patricia said, gesturing to Melissa and Brandon, Our children wanted to say something. Melissa went first, talking about how Dad had welcomed her into his life, been a father figure, guided her through difficult times. Brandon followed with similar sentiments. Both got emotional. Everyone applauded. Then Patricia turned to me. Sophia, did you want to say anything? It was clearly an afterthought. A polite inclusion because someone had probably reminded her I was there. No thank you, I said quietly. I'm fine just listening. Are you sure? You came all this way. I'm sure. Well, if you change your mind. She didn't finish the sentence, already turning back to Dad. They cut the cake. Everyone sang happy birthday. Photos were taken, lots of photos. Patricia arranged everyone for a family photo. Dad in the center, Patricia beside him, Melissa and Brandon and their families clustered around. Sophia, get in here. Dad called out. I moved toward the group, but Patricia held up her hand. Actually, let's do immediate family first, then we can do an extended family photo. I stopped. Immediate family. The message was clear. The photographer took several shots. Then Patricia turned to me. Okay, now one with Sophia. I shook my head. It's okay. I should probably get going anyway. Long drive back. Already? Dad asked, but he didn't sound disappointed. More relieved. Yeah. Early work tomorrow. I moved toward him, giving him a brief hug. Happy birthday, Dad. Thanks for coming, Sophia. I was gathering my purse when Patricia's voice carried across the room. Well, that was kind of her to come, wasn't it? She wasn't speaking quietly. Even though she's not really family. Not in the way that matters. I froze. Melissa laughed. Mom, that's harsh. I'm just being honest. She wasn't even in the family photos growing up. She barely visits. She doesn't call. She shows up for big events and then disappears again. That's not family. That's obligation. Patricia, Dad started. Oh, Robert, don't. You know I'm right. Sophia is your daughter biologically, yes. But family is about more than blood. It's about being present, being involved, being part of each other's lives. And she's just not. My hand was on the doorknob. I could leave. I should leave. You know what I think? Brandon chimed in. I think she comes around hoping for something. Inheritance maybe. She knows Dad was successful. She's probably thinking long term. Brandon, that's not fair, Dad said, but his voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Patricia's voice was sharp now. She shows up empty-handed except for a gift that probably cost her $20, stays for a few hours, barely interacts with anyone and then leaves. What's the point except to maintain some claim on being family? I turned around slowly. Everyone was watching me now, waiting to see what I'd do. You're right, I said quietly. I'm not family. Not in the way you define it. I apologize for intruding on your celebration. Sophia, I didn't mean, Dad started. Yes, you did. I looked at him directly. You let her say it. You've let her say things like it for 15 years. Every time I visited and wasn't included. Every time I was the afterthought. Every time I was introduced as my daughter from my first marriage, like I was a chapter you'd closed. That's not true, Dad protested weakly. When's my birthday, Dad? He blinked. What? My birthday. When is it? Silence. It's June 14th, I said. I turned 32 this year. You forgot to call. You've forgotten for the last 4 years. I've been busy. I know. Building this family. I gestured around the room. The one I'm not really part of. You could have been, Patricia said sharply. You could have made an effort. You could have been present. Instead, you held yourself apart like you were too good for us. The doorbell rang. Everyone froze. Patricia looked annoyed at the interruption. Who could that be? She moved toward the door. We're not expecting anyone else. She opened it. A man in his 60s stood there, wearing a formal suit and carrying a leather briefcase. He had that unmistakable air of expensive legal representation. Good afternoon, he said. I'm looking for Sophia Barnes. I was told I might find her here. Patricia's face showed surprise. Sophia? Why would you be looking for her? The lawyer's eyes scanned the room and landed on me. Miss Barnes? I'm Herbert Whitmore from Whitmore, Patterson and Associates. I apologize for interrupting what appears to be a celebration, but I have time-sensitive documents from your late grandfather's estate that require your immediate attention. The room went completely silent. My grandfather? I asked. Jonathan Barnes. He passed away 4 weeks ago. I understand you were very close. My throat tightened. Grandfather. I'd known he was sick, but I'd been told his condition was stable. 4 weeks ago. They hadn't even told me he'd died. I didn't know, I said. Mr. Whitmore's expression shifted to concern. You didn't know he'd passed? I was told the family had been notified. The family was notified, Dad said quietly. I didn't think to tell Sophia. They hadn't been in contact recently. We had lunch 3 months ago, I said, my voice harder now. We talked every week. Dad looked shocked. You did? Yes. Did you think I had no relationship with him just because I had none with you? Mr. Whitmore cleared his throat. Perhaps we should discuss this in private, Ms. Barnes. No, Patricia said sharply. This is our home. If there's family business to discuss, we have a right to hear it. With respect, ma'am, you're not family in the legal sense. Not as it pertains to Jonathan Barnes's estate. Robert is his son, Patricia snapped. Yes. And I'll need to speak with Mr. Barnes as well. But my primary business today is with Miss Sophia Barnes. He turned to me. Your grandfather named you as the principal beneficiary of his estate. I have documents that require your signature, and information about assets that are now under your control. Assets. Melissa's voice was sharp. What assets? Mr. Whitmore ignored her. Miss Barnes, is there somewhere we can speak privately? I was still processing. Grandfather was dead. Nobody had told me. And now his lawyer was here at my father's house, talking about estates and beneficiaries. We can talk here, I said. If it concerns my grandfather's estate, my father should hear it too. He was his son after all. Mr. Whitmore hesitated, then nodded. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder. Very well. Jonathan Barnes passed away on October 3rd. His will was filed for probate last week. The estate has been valued at approximately $4.1 billion. Someone gasped. I think it was Patricia. $4 billion. Dad's voice was strangled. $4.1 billion, yes. Mr. Barnes was quite successful in his investments over the years. He lived modestly, as you know, but he accumulated substantial wealth. Mr. Whitmore looked at me. He left the bulk of his estate, approximately 85% of total assets, to you, Ms. Barnes. That includes his company holdings, investment portfolios, real estate, and liquid assets. 85%? Patricia's voice rose. That's insane. Robert is his son. Robert Barnes receives 10% of the estate, Mr. Whitmore continued calmly. The remaining 5% is distributed among various charities Mr. Barnes supported. Dad had gone pale. 10% of $4 billion. That's $400 million, yes. A substantial inheritance by any measure. But she gets $3.4 billion? Melissa pointed at me. That's not fair. She's barely family. She barely even knew him. On the contrary, Mr. Whitmore said, pulling out another document. Mr. Barnes kept detailed records of his relationship with Ms. Sophia Barnes. Weekly phone calls for the past 20 years. Monthly lunch meetings. Birthday cards, holiday visits, regular communication. He also kept records of what he called abandonment by his son Robert. Missed visits, forgotten birthdays, years of minimal contact. He pulled out a letter and held it up. This is a letter Mr. Barnes wrote to be read in the event of his death. Would you like me to read it aloud? Yes, I said quietly. Mr. Whitmore unfolded the letter and began reading in a clear, formal voice. To my family and friends gathered to hear this will, I want to explain my decisions. My son Robert chose his career and his new family over maintaining a relationship with his father and his daughter. When his first wife died and Sophia needed him most, he withdrew. When Sophia needed a family, I provided one. For 20 years, Sophia has been the grandchild who remembered my birthday, who called to check on me, who visited regularly, who cared about my life and my well-being. Robert saw me perhaps once a year, usually when he needed legal advice or financial assistance. The choice of beneficiary was simple. I left my legacy to the family member who treated me like family. Sophia earned every dollar through years of love, attention, and genuine care. Robert inherited exactly what he gave me, the bare minimum. The silence in the room was crushing. Mr. Whitmore folded the letter and looked at me. Your grandfather wanted you to know that you were loved, that you were valued, that you were always true family to him regardless of what anyone else said. I felt tears sliding down my face. There's more, Mr. Whitmore continued. Your grandfather also owned this property. He gestured around the room. The house you're currently standing in. He purchased it 15 years ago and allowed Robert and Patricia to live here rent-free. As of today, ownership transfers to you, Ms. Barnes. Patricia's face went white. This house. He owned our house. Yes. And as the new owner, Ms. Barnes has the right to determine who resides here and under what terms. Everyone was staring at me now. The granddaughter who wasn't real family. The daughter who barely knew her grandfather. The afterthought who just inherited $3.4 billion in the house they were standing in. I need to sit down, I said quietly. Mr. Whitmore guided me to the couch. I understand this is overwhelming. Take your time. My grandfather died 4 weeks ago, I said to Dad. You knew and didn't tell me. I didn't think. Dad trailed off. I assumed someone else would tell you. I've been busy with the party planning. He died and you were planning a birthday party? My voice cracked. Did you even go to his funeral? Dad's silence was answer enough. I went, I said. Oh my God, I went. I saw the obituary online 3 weeks ago and drove up immediately. I spoke at the service. I was the only family member there. I looked at him with new understanding. You didn't know I'd gone because you didn't go yourself. You didn't even care enough to attend your own father's funeral. It was complicated, Dad started. No, it wasn't. It was simple. He was your father and he died and you couldn't be bothered to show up. You can't talk to him like that, Patricia said sharply. This is his birthday. This is his house, I corrected. My house now, actually. You live here because my grandfather let you. Because he was kind and generous and hoped that maybe if he gave you a beautiful place to live, you'd remember to visit him occasionally. We visited, Patricia protested. When did you visit? I stood up, anger finally breaking through the shock. I was there every month. Every single month for 20 years. I never saw you once. We had busy lives. I have a busy life. I work 60 hours a week running a biotech startup. I have a life and friends and responsibilities. But I still made time for grandfather because he was family. Because family isn't just blood. It's not just obligation. It's showing up. It's being present. It's actually caring about people. I turned to Mr. Whitmore. What do I need to sign? He pulled out several documents. These transfer primary assets to your control. We'll need to schedule a full meeting to go through everything, but this establishes your authority over the estate. I signed where he indicated, my hand shaking slightly. And the house? I asked. Also requires your signature transferring ownership. After that, you can make any decisions you see fit regarding current occupants. I signed that too. Patricia was crying now. You can't kick us out. This is our home. We've lived here 15 years. I'm not kicking you out, I said quietly. You can stay. Grandfather wouldn't want you homeless and neither do I. She looked relieved. But, I continued, you'll be paying rent. Market rate. I'll have an appraiser come out this week to determine fair market value for a property of this size. And I'll need first month, last month and security deposit. Rent. Dad looked shocked. Sophia, we can't afford. You're a senior partner at a law firm, Dad. Patricia works in pharmaceutical sales. Between you, you make approximately $450,000 a year. You can afford rent. How do you know what we make? Patricia demanded. Because I pay attention. Because I listen when people talk. Because I actually know things about my family, even when they don't know anything about me. Mr. Whitmore cleared his throat. Miss Barnes, we should go. We have several items to discuss regarding the estate management, and I'm sure you need time to process everything. Yes. Let's go. I turned to Dad one last time. Happy birthday. I hope you enjoy your party. Sophia, wait. For what? For you to explain why you forgot to tell me my grandfather died. For Patricia to explain why I'm not real family. For Melissa and Brandon to accuse me again of coming around for inheritance. I shook my head. You were right, Patricia. I'm not family. Not yours anyway. I was grandfather's family. And that's enough. I followed Mr. Whitmore to the door. Behind me, I could hear whispers starting, voices rising in argument. Miss Barnes, Mr. Whitmore said quietly once we were outside, your grandfather asked me to tell you something in person if this situation arose. What's that? He said, tell Sophia she was always enough. Tell her she was always loved. Tell her she was always real family to me, and I'm proud of the woman she became. The tears came then, hot and fast. Mr. Whitmore handed me a handkerchief and waited patiently while I cried. He was the best man I knew, I said finally. He spoke very highly of you. Said you were the only person who visited him for him, not for what he could provide. That meant everything to him. I miss him. I know. But he made sure you'd be taken care of. Not just financially, though certainly that, but emotionally. He wanted you to know your worth. Wanted you to see that you were valued even when others made you feel invisible. I wiped my eyes. What happens now? Now we go to my office. We review all the holdings, and Miss Barnes, there are quite a few. Your grandfather was very successful. Then we set up the management structures you'll need. You're a wealthy woman now. That comes with both opportunity and responsibility. I know. I've been running my own company for 5 years. I understand wealth management. He smiled. Your grandfather mentioned that. Said you had good business sense. Said you'd earned your own success before you ever needed his. I tried to. You succeeded. And now you have resources that can help you succeed even more. He opened his car door. Shall we? I looked back at the house. My house now, where my father's birthday party continued without me. Where Patricia was probably raging about the injustice of it all. Where Melissa and Brandon were recalculating their own expectations of inheritance. And I felt nothing. No anger. No hurt. Just a quiet recognition that I'd finally been seen. Not by them. They'd never seen me. But by the one person who mattered most. Grandfather had seen me. Had valued me. Had made sure even in death that I knew I was real family. And that was enough. Yes, I said to Mr. Whitmore. Let's go. I got in my car and followed him toward the city, toward my real life, toward a future where I'd never again question whether I was enough. As I was. I always had been. And now I had $3.4 billion and a letter from grandfather proving it. Maybe.